All right, welcome into another Auburn Live show. As always, this is our Monday morning quarterback edition with our good friend Ben Leard joining us. Ben, what's up, man?
Oak, man, I'm happy to be here today, buddy. Yesterday was huge. It was really exciting to see these kids play as hard as they did and lay it all on the line and break a winless streak in Death Valley since 1999. So I'm excited to be celebrating with them.
Man, I know you are. Appreciate everybody joining us. I'm Justin Hoganson. Make sure you're at auburnlive.com and subscribing to auburnlive.com, part of the On3 Sports Network, as we grow this thing. All right, let's dive into this game, man. Auburn gets it done at LSU 24-19. Not sure anybody would have predicted, kind of some of the things that happened in that game. But I will say, I'm tooting my own horn here. Late in the week, man, we had some, on the show, and I don't remember where my stance was on Monday, but late in the week, and I said it going into the weekend, even tweeted it on Saturday. I thought Auburn was going to win the game. I couldn't pinpoint why. I mean, LSU was a practical pick for a lot of reasons. But there was some kind of just in my gut the past few days going into that game that was odd, that I just thought, I think Auburn's going to get the job done. Not sure where. I think it's going to be in the fourth quarter, and I said I think they're going to make a play. I did not predict, Bo to do the things that he did in that game. I thought TJ Finley probably was going to get the start, but credit to Bo. What's kind of your reaction? I'd imagine your reaction's different. I mean, you were there the last time Auburn won. So what's your reaction, let's say, from that perspective of knowing the feeling of winning in Baton Rouge, and then what's your perspective just as it relates to this team and what they accomplished in what we thought was a must win?
Yeah, and it definitely was. Man, it was a situation, honestly, Hoke, it was a must win for both teams.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the fact, if you think about the gauntlet that both squads are having to run over the next 4 weeks, essentially, and it's a extremely slippery slope for both football teams. But, I gladly relinquish the fact that my teammates and I are no longer the last Auburn football team to win at Death Valley. It is hands down one of the most difficult places to play as a visiting opponent, especially when the game is at night. Now, I will say this: it was not a full house, and I was surprised to see that. You could see on the TV copy where there were, a spattering of empty seats here and there, but I am certain that it was deafeningly loud inside Tiger Stadium. At any point, especially on the third and fourth downs. The sideline analyst was saying that she is hands down, that's the loudest place she's ever been. Any sports fan, put it on your bucket list because it lives up to all the hype. But I fully expected TJ Finley to be the starter. I thought he earned it. I thought he put that feather in his cap last week against Georgia State. That was early on until about Friday. I started thinking about how Brian Harsin and Mike Bobo would handle the situation. And then you step back and you think about the amount of work and wins and plays that Bo has made over the last 2 full seasons. And, Saturday's game against Georgia State, I don't think was reason enough or a culmination of events enough for Bo to essentially lose that starting nod. Now, it is very dependent upon how it was handled from the standpoint of how they spoke to TJ Finley, laid it out to him, and had him understand where they were coming from as the head coach and offensive coordinator. Now, do they owe anybody that explanation? Absolutely not. But in an effort of respect for the kids and have them understand what was going on, I think it was pivotal. and knowing, seeing and observing the way Brian Harsin handles himself and discusses and does things like that with his team, I feel pretty confident that conversation had happened. The other portion of it, man, I agree with you, Hope. I didn't see Bo playing the way he did. I did not. I mean, I thought he played a phenomenal ball game. And that's just take out the fourth down throws that he made. Take those plays out. He still played a heck of a ball game. He stayed in the pocket when he needed to. He was patient. There were only, maybe one or two plays that you could critique. And that's common for any quarterback. But just the amount of guts that not just him, that the entire team played with. They laid it on the line. And I was so proud to watch those kids play as hard as they did and come away with the win. There's the offensive line stepped up, made plays when they need to. Kobe Hudson made a great catch on one of the field goal drives. He did have a drop, but again, they made plays when they needed to. Sean Shivers, a kid that missed a couple of games earlier on in the season, really has struggled to find an identity in Mike Bobo's offense. Dude, the swing catches that he made on pivotal third downs to sustain drives, that to me, that's enough to earn MVP odds there. I mean, it just he is a leader. He reminds me a lot of Clifton Robinson, somebody that's his heart is 10 times bigger than his body. And when you step back and look, and I noticed a tweet by you today, first quarter of the game, worst defensive strategy I thought we would ever see.
Man, it was bad.
I mean, it was torturous to watch. They figured something out.
Yeah.
And they obviously assumed and figured out that LSU was not going to run the ball. LSU was dedicated to the pass. And for some way, somehow, they were able to manufacture pressure with a three-man rush. Hall, Wooden, those guys really, really played well and stepped up and made big plays and pressured Max Johnson in key situations. And the other thing I was impressed with was the open field tackling. Jalen Simpson made some really big open field tackles against Boutte. Then you have the freshman in Betch, a kid they really targeted in that slot position on some of the digs and some of the slants. They got some yards, but they kept them inside the first down yardage. So I was extremely impressed with the defensive execution, especially in the third and fourth quarter when they had to make plays. And just all in all, man, just for them to come out with a win, it was a huge, huge success. And I can't tell you how proud of them I am.
Yeah, obviously Bo Nix is the storyline because we went into that game not knowing who was going to start at quarterback, and so it's Bo, and then of course he has some of those fourth down plays that just dominate the game. They're just amazing. The throw to Tyler Fromm is still just a ridiculous play. And he made another one where he scrambled back and ended up finding Demetrius Robertson. He made another one where he scrambled towards the sideline and found John Samuel Shanker. So those plays dominate your mind, and Bo dominates your mind in that game. But I think you could go a lot of ways. I think there's a lot of heroes. There's a lot of guys that made plays, but that defense won that football game for Auburn. I mean, the way they settled in, it was amazing. The stats and the numbers when you look at how they got better. LSU had about the first quarter was about, I think they had 150-ish yards of offense for LSU in the first quarter. Second quarter, they had 100. Third quarter, they had 70. Fourth quarter, they had 55. And 2 first downs in the fourth quarter. That's it.
And think of it too, Hope. At the half, Max Johnson had just under 250 yards of passing.
Yeah,
he was completing if I'm not mistaken, he was completing 85% of his passes at halftime.
Well, he started 8 for 10 for a buck 45, 8 for 10 for a buck 45, and from that point on, he was uh, basically like 18 of maybe 36. He's basically a 50% passer for the rest of the game for about 150, 160 something. I mean,
which is which
completely
is
different
it's
quarterback and a
phenomenal.
pick. Yeah,
Is phenomenal. I mean,
yeah.
to do what they did defensively, and you think about it too, man. There were a few instances where LSU tried to run the football.
Hmm.
They tried. They didn't commit to it. But even in those situations, when Auburn had roughly four men in the box and with three down linemen, three guys with their hands in the dirt, LSU still could not run the ball. That
Yeah.
is a defensive front with three young men that is imposing their will on an offensive front at LSU that's talented, but they've had their struggles.
Yeah.
They were sold out to the pass, both offensively and defensively. Auburn on defense, LSU on offense. They knew what they were going to do. And ultimately, just the adjustments. I mean, because you go back and think, and I'm sitting there watching it as a guy that my strengths as a quarterback were seeing what a defense was allowing me to have, taking what was being given. And if you looked at the TV copy of that particular game, you could look at the intermediate slot receiver, the secondary slot receiver, and essentially the safety and the inside linebacker, or sometimes the safety and the nickel defender, were roughly 10 yards off these guys. All day long, I would have eaten their lunch.
Oh
I
yeah.
would have thrown slants. I would have thrown, bubble screens. I would have thrown just sticks, anything and everything to get the ball in those guys' hands on 2 and 3 and 5 yard routes. Let them do what they're going to do. They're one missed tackle away from busting it. Case in point was the first play from scrimmage, a 55-yarder to Boutte. So,
Yeah.
but as the game progressed, you could see guys like Smoke Monday, they would start in an extreme cushion situation or extreme pad situation. And as the cadence went on, you would see them tighten. And that was something that there was something in some way they were being coached to do that, which ultimately eliminated Max Johnson's ability to make some type of audible or some type of check at the line of scrimmage. So Derek Mason and that staff and the players,
Yeah.
just
Well,
some genius adjustments.
yeah, and we talked about this going in. I thought that, look, Derek Mason's a guy that's going to stick to his scheme, and so, but I said after Penn State when everybody was freaking out, I said, well, look, let's get through LSU. Let's see what happens against LSU. Let's give him a chance to adjust. Let's give him a chance to learn. And yeah, that first quarter, I thought, buddy, what are you doing? Because the space that those guys were having, um, even into the second quarter, especially at the slot position was crazy. But what Derek Mason started to do, I thought there were a couple of things. One, I think you give a massive amount of kudos to the defensive line, mainly Derek Hall and Colby Wooden, but right behind them, Romello Height and Iko Leota. Those guys, there was a time, I don't know when it was, but there was a time when all of a sudden those guys became the four linemen, and I said, okay, that's that's four guys that normally wouldn't be together. That's three ends basically that are rushing the passer, and then Colby Wooden, who played fantastic. That's the Colby Wooden we need to see. But I was like, if that group, that now you found something. We love Tony Fair and Marcus Harrison. They have a role. But if you need to get to the quarterback, if you're okay with those four and you can trust those four and say, okay, well, look, we don't think LSU is going to come out and try to pound us. So if they do try to run and I get caught with those four, if they can just play physical enough, and they did the job. That was huge. And the other thing was his ability to mix it up between zone and man was great. He still was playing some zone, but he was mixing it up enough to where he got Max Johnson and that offense, I think, off balance a little bit. Where is it man? Is it zone? They back off, they come up, and so I thought Derek Mason called a great game those last 2.5, 3 quarters of mixing up that man and zone. And you look at the last play of the game, the interception. If I mean, if I didn't tell you who the defense coordinator was, you probably wouldn't guess that was Derek Mason. Everybody on the line didn't know who was coming or not. They snap it. Some guys drop in coverage on total man-to-man. Derek Hall turns into that spot and then rushes the quarterback completely man up, and they force a pick. I mean, that was an aggressive call right there, 4th and 6, going man-to-man, and let's see what happened. And so
That
those
was
two things stood out.
the historic football fans that go back to the Alabama days, the 1992 Alabama days, and even early days with regards to myself at Auburn, that really would remind those folks that remember this of Bill Oliver's style of defense. You know, I can remember things that he did with guys like Brad Ware, Rob Pate, Takeo Spikes, Ricky Neal, Jason Bray, all those dudes that could do anything on the defensive field. He at times would line up and have 11 defenders on the line of scrimmage. You had no clue who was doing what. Very similar to kind of a Joe Lee Dunn scenario at Mississippi State. And that was one I did notice that in that last play from scrimmage, or excuse me, the interception play. You can't imagine seeing that as a quarterback at the line of scrimmage and not having a grasp or an understanding of who's doing what. And ultimately it's the play to win or lose the game. That's pressure. And you could tell it was a scenario or situation that Derek Mason had coached those guys into at some point. It was, probably one of those things that you're like, all right, boys, here it is. It's time to do it. You've wanted this defense called. Get at it. Let's see what happens. And it was good.
And I thought Roger McCreary, I'd have to go back and look, but I thought he played really well. I think you could see there was times where when they did kind of go more of an aggressive man, or sometimes even it was a mix. There was times where I saw McCreary in bump man to man on Keyshawn Butte, but then the others guys were off, and so there was a mix. Keyshawn Butte, another guy, had 99 yards. So at that first drive, you couldn't replicate that because of that bad snap. Keyshawn Butte had 99 yards receiving on the first drive. I think Max Johnson had 120 yards passing on one drive. That first drive was ridiculous. But Butte had 99 yards on the first drive. He had 29 yards the rest of the game because McCreary started getting up on him a little bit more, and Auburn mixed it up. But they said, okay, look, we can't. This guy can't just have all the space. That's a disaster.
And dude, look, I don't care who it is. That touchdown throw and catch that they made on the first drive, there is you could have not drawn a better ball than that. It was a phenomenal catch. It was in double coverage. It was one of the most well thrown balls that I have seen in years.
Yeah, it was a great ball. I still don't know why Zion Puckett was covering him, though. I still would like to know that. Zion Puckett, Auburn's safety, was covering Keyshawn Butte down the field. I don't know why. I'd like to go back and look at that play and figure out how did he end up head up on Butte on that play. But yes, it was a perfect throw. It was a perfect throw.
Yeah.
Knighton came over, had no chance of getting over there. It was a great throw. And LSU's got problems running the football. Oh boy.
Man.
Auburn did fine. LSU's running backs, I think, were under 50 combined rushing yards for their running backs. So another really good performance from Auburn without Owen Papo, by the way. And TD Moultrie.
And TD Moultrie.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Auburn was, game time decisions for three of their most notable defenders, especially Moultrie and Papo. So, you go back and look, and that to me, that speaks more to the grittiness of the performance. I mean, you got three of the team leaders, especially the unit leaders that are not even playing. And how well Zacoby McClain played. I mean, making tackles in space, really making clutch tackles on third downs to prevent, yards after the catch in order for them to sustain drives and get a first down. I mean, the guys played super, super hard. I mean, they laid it all on the line, and it was from top to bottom just an unreal performance, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But I mean, Hope, we talk about the success that Auburn developed or was able to find in the rushing attack, especially in the fourth quarter. It was
Yeah, yeah,
notable that they had gotten to a point on the offensive front that they felt as if they could get some yards through the running, through the rushing attack. I still, even as hard and as well as Jarquez Hunter has played, man, I keep waiting on Tank. Where is there something that we're missing? Is there something that he's missing? And looking at his inability right now to have a breakout game or just be the workhorse. I'm waiting on that. I'm excited to see it because obviously he's got the ability to do so. But when you go back and you backtrack and he barely played after the fumble against Georgia State, he was, not to be critical, but he was fairly insignificant in this ball game.
yeah.
And had a
And
had a couple of plays,
I'd like to
but
know Brian Harson's answer to that because to me, look, I know that going into Georgia State, Tank Bigsby was banged up. He and Owen Papo were both questionable on whether they would play. Bigsby plays. Papo hasn't played since then. But to me, Bigsby looks healthy enough. If he's banged up, that's fine. But he looks pretty healthy. I mean, he had a couple of times where there was a burst there. I can't quite explain why he's found no running room, except to maybe look at, you maybe have to go back and dissect the exact running plays that they're giving Tank and Jarquez. Auburn is not running between the tackles right now. Teams are stacking the box. They're keying on Tank Bigsby. The safety's creeping up when Tank's in there. And I just feel like when Tank's not in there, teams play them more fair because it's okay. The backup running back's in Jarquez. It could be a run or a pass. When Tank's in there, it feels like there's a higher percentage that it's going to be a run, and so I think he's getting caught in situations of just not having anywhere to run, and so it is weird because then you see Jarquez come in and well, dang, how does he find room? That tall sweep play, by the way, at some point it's not going to work, but it hasn't yet. It's been
well,
amazing. It's been an amazing play so far.
it's money. I mean,
Yeah,
it is a money play. But mark my words, there's too much other stuff going on in that play for that to be the only situation in that play. There's going to be something that comes out of that later in the season or in a clutch situation where those two guys coming back around on the end around or doing something at the snap of the ball. There's going to be a B scenario, a C scenario, or a secondary step out of that, because it's been too good. It
yeah.
has been too successful at this point, and there's too much going on in that play for there not to be something that Mike Bobo is trying to plant some seeds for.
Yeah. But Jarquez had another run. I mean, the kid runs really hard, but so does Tank. So I would like to know Harson's answer to just kind of what he's seeing um, from Tank because he might be banged up, but he looks healthy enough that it doesn't quite make sense the last two games. I mean, I'd have to go back and look. I think at halftime, um, his last six quarters was like 27 carries for like 65 yards. I mean, it was just
Yeah.
out of nowhere. It has become there's no room for him to run, and yet Jarquez has still found some space to make a couple of runs. And Auburn's got to figure that out because that running game, Auburn won, but boy, that running game, especially between the tackles, is not there. But to the offensive line's credit, I don't think we've talked. We talk about Bo Nix's game coming into this game. LSU had 18 sacks on the season. Now I did wonder about that number because they only had one against Mississippi State. So I thought to myself, is that number padded? They're leading the nation in sacks, but in their first conference game, they only had one. And so I was waiting to see if that was, if that was kind of for real or not. But credit the Auburn offensive line in terms of pass blocking. They gave up 0 sacks, maybe 4 or 5 pressures. Now, Bo ran around and made a couple of plays. But Bo chose to do that. Like on those plays, Bo could have thrown it away. Bo could have scrambled back up the middle. Like it's not like he absolutely would have gotten sacked. He just chose to go full backyard football. So I don't necessarily say that if it would have been anybody else, it would have been a sack. But the offensive line did a good job of giving them time to throw the football against a team that was pretty aggressive rushing the passer. So I'll give them credit for that.
Yeah, I think the offensive line did a much better job in the point of attack, whether it be rushing the football later in the latter part of the game, protecting Bo Nix, most importantly. And I was talking about this earlier today in the sense that I felt like the offensive line did a good enough job to give him time to throw the football, to give him protection within the pocket. And you talk about, just like you said, full backyard football and the miraculous plays that he made. The problem that I have with those plays, obviously, you know what that tells you, is why don't we have a receiver getting open?
Right.
Yeah. And it takes that long for somebody to come open. It's still not good. And again, are those happening every single snap? No. But when you watch an Ole Miss, when you watch an Alabama, Georgia's not a good example because they only threw the ball like 11 or 12 times against Arkansas. But when you see these teams that throw the football with success, consistent success, it just seems less stressful, I guess is the right term, that it's, snap, catch, drop, release. Case in point is, I think, the first third down conversion. Bo throws the ball to Kobe Hudson on a deep, 12 to 15 yard dig route going from, Auburn sideline in the direction of LSU sideline.
Yeah.
That is your prototypical type of, pass and catch you expect to see at the collegiate level in the SEC.
Yeah.
Not cover 53 and a third yards, make a unbelievable throw to Tyler Fromm in the end zone where it was just a culmination of emotions, where LSU think they have them, and then the Auburn fans are down and out. And then all of a sudden Auburn's like, holy crap, there's a touchdown.
That was insane. By the way, Jarquez Hunter was open on that play, but that second LSU defender that Bo had to the go around messed that up. If that guy's not there, Jarquez actually did a good job of starting to release out. Yep. It was wide open, but then Bo had to turn, and then when that guy jumped, and then when he had to go around that guy, then by the time he made that play, that was a little bit tougher throw, and Hunter turned it upfield and kind of went up sideline. And at that point, now he really didn't have anybody. And so it was almost what's amazing about that play is Fromm was the initial target going the other way. It was supposed to go to Fromm anyway.
Yeah, and he ultimately got knocked off his route. They checked him kind of checked him at the line of scrimmage and got on him pretty good. And Bo he just made a play. And they said several times during that broadcast that Mike, sat down with Bo on Sunday and said, "Hey son, here's the deal. Your legacy, not only here at Auburn, but for you as a man, is going to be determined by how you react and respond to adverse situations. Not how long you sit on the mountaintop, but how you get yourself back up there." And I was so proud of him. I mean, just the kid, he was all out, man. I mean, he was all out. I think hands down, to me, best game of his Auburn career. There's no doubt in my mind.
It's certainly up there for a few reasons. I mean, I asked that question on Twitter. You had the Oregon game as game one of his career, and you had the Iron Bowl in 2019 that he's won. Big games that he's won. They're all a little different. This game, for the circumstances, those two games were home and neutral. For the circumstances of this game, being benched a week earlier, on the road, down 13-0. The circumstances around this game, this will be probably so far in his career, this is probably the one that people are going to remember the
Yeah.
most. Um, just um, because of because of all that goes into it. But I think you bring up some good points. And I didn't want to go there. Now we're on the Monday morning quarterback edition, so we can go there. And that is, look, great win for Auburn beating LSU. LSU's a decent football team. We don't know how good they are, but it doesn't really matter. Auburn won in Baton Rouge, and they're 1-0 in the conference, and they did their job. Um, that's not going to work next week. Newsflash, that isn't going to work.
Bo
Bo
will
get
get killed.
killed.
Bo will get
Killed.
killed. Yeah.
50%. Look, and at the end of the day, he was 50% passing, Bo. Okay. So it's not like Bo was 70% for the day. It's 50%. Now he used his legs. That was maybe the biggest key of the game. Is does that continue? 74 yards rushing, a number of scrambles, but definitely some designed runs. That has to continue because Bo is a good athlete. And so we'll see if they can have success. But that running around won't work against Georgia. I don't really see Auburn running the football. If they can't run it the last couple of games, if they struggled against LSU, they're not going to come out and all of a sudden run between the tackles on Georgia. Not happening. So let's just say Auburn runs for, let's say they squeak out 3 yards a carry somehow, rushing the football. Bo running around for his life isn't going to work. So kudos to winning the game against LSU, but I'm not sure what you found out identity-wise as an offense. It sounds weird winning that game. The only thing I could point to is Bo using his legs. It's the only thing I could point to that says, okay, you might have found something there to keep doing. You need to make sure that he has a couple of design runs, quarterback draws, and use that weapon that he has. But past that, I think there's still a lot of issues and kind of trying to figure out where the identity is. Shivers may have found a little bit of a role. Maybe you get back in the mix, and he can be a player out of the backfield at times. But still, a lot of questions and things that are not going to work against Georgia.
Oh, absolutely. And this is the ways that you can think about it and measure it is the one positive is that, and I feel confident about this, that Georgia's defense will not be more athletic than LSU. I would put them in the same light when it comes to athleticism, speed, able to cover ground and do those types of things. But the difference is, like you had said, they are so big and athletic combined in their front seven that if Auburn manages 3 yards to carry on Saturday, that will be a huge victory. That will be ecstatic. But what Georgia's going to do ultimately, they're going to line up with 8 men in the box and say, you're not running football. You're not going to do it. We're going to go man across the board. Your receivers are not better than our DBs. We don't feel like you can run the ball hat on hat. And so we're going to put 8 in the box. If you're going to run an RPO or try and do something, finicky with Bo off the edge after an inside, zone fake to Tank or Jarquez or Sean, we're going to have a guy sitting out on the edge waiting on him. And it's just going to be 3 and out, 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 over and over and over. It's just going to be death by 1,000 cuts. So there is going to have to be some scenarios that Auburn manufactures a big play. they have got to have some big plays out of their receivers. They haven't done it thus far this season. So why not now? What better time than this particular game? So it will be interesting. It is an extremely difficult task. And like you had said, although from an emotional standpoint, huge win against LSU. It's giant. But in the realm of relativity to finding an identity or really kind of imposing your will on the SEC and for notoriety's sake, it's over. It's done. Sunday's finished. You got to start preparing for Georgia, which is hands down the best defense in the country. And they are going to have to do things to get Georgia out of their customary aggressive style of defense. Georgia has an extremely talented front four. I mean, speed, size, just get off in general. Some of the best linebackers, I would put them up there with their aggressiveness with Zacoby and Owen from the standpoint of they just flat get after it. Secondary wise, they're okay in the secondary. They're good. They're athletic, but they are so dominant in the secondary because they are so good up front. And that gives you a lot of margin for error. That gives you a lot of ability to make some gambles here and there. And it also gives you the ability not to have to really cover your guy for very long because you don't have the quarterback has such little time to get rid of the football because they can get so much pressure with four. They can get so much pass rush with just four guys. And, it's reminds me a lot of the defenses in I guess it would have been the 11, 12, 13, 2011, 12, 13, A.J. McCarron, Alabama days where
they had some special defenses.
Where Alabama offensively, they were good. They were really good, but Alabama offensively was not as good as 2019 LSU. They weren't as good as 2020 Alabama offense, but their defense was so dominant that if their offense scored 14 or 17 points, game over, lock it down. And that's the way this Georgia football team is. You have to be resilient, and you damn well better be tough because they get after it.
I saw Peter Burns from SEC Network made a comparison to this Georgia team. He said it looks like a 2003 LSU defense. You think back to Marcus Spears and Michael Clayton and those big linebackers they had. I mean, that was that 2003 LSU defense that won the national title was a brick wall. Shut down a Heisman Trophy winner in the Sugar Bowl, and so I think they're going to come in. Look, I don't think Georgia has to do anything special to stop Auburn's run. That's the thing. They're that good. They're going to be able to figure out ways to set the edge, make sure that Bo isn't doing anything crazy. If he gets to scrambling, I promise you somebody will get after him. And so it's just going to be a tough ask. And then on the other side, Georgia runs the football. They probably have the best stable of backs in the SEC. At one point we thought Tank and Jarquez, but Tank's, struggling a little bit right now, but they have an incredible stable of running backs. And so they're going to test that Auburn rush defense and some of those numbers that Auburn's put up rushing, stopping the run. They're going to test that.
Yeah.
And so, it's going to take a monumental effort, I think, from Auburn's defense. I think Auburn's defense is going to have to set that offense up in good field position a couple times, try to force a turnover. Because Auburn, look, if they're averaging starting at like the 25, it's not going to be good. I mean, they're not going to be able to put those kind of drives together. Nobody is. Alabama, I mean, there's only a couple offenses that are good that would even have a chance against this defense, and Auburn's is not one of them.
Yeah.
But at home on a short field, maybe. If you can force a situation where you take over at the 35 and you can hit a couple of plays and kick some field goal, I mean, you can at least hang around maybe.
Yeah.
But it's going to be an incredible.
if you think about it like this is super cliche, and I know you've heard this, and you've probably said it as well. One, it's home. It's at home. The environment will be absolutely electric.
But there will be more Georgia fans in that stadium than I've been to a lot of Auburn
That, that
football games and a lot of Georgia Auburn football games. There have to be at least 15,000 Georgia fans that find their way in that stadium.
there probably will be. So anybody and everybody that is listening to this podcast, you better not sell your damn tickets to a Georgia fan. I'm telling you, I'll buy
Yeah,
it.
that's the worst.
Don't do it. Do not do it. And it's because it is you want to maintain that home field advantage. So anyway, the cliche portion of it is it's going to be at home. It's going to be electric. If Auburn can have a way or find a way to be in the game entering the fourth quarter, if they can be within arm's reach of Georgia, I think they can pull it out. But if it is just an absolute if it's a boat race by that time, if they're down by 13, if they're down by 17 going into the fourth quarter, it's just not going to happen. But if they're within 3, if they're within 7, there is an opportunity for something good to happen. But like you said, man, they're going to need a little bit of help from Georgia. They're going to need a turnover. They're going to need some uncharacteristic plays by Georgia in order to put them in positive field position situations. Georgia's going to do play action pass. They're going to run the football. They're committed to the run. Whether it be Zeus, whether it be Milton, they have very talented guys that can run the football, that are very capable of catching the football out of the backfield, especially in the spring in the screen game. So Stetson Bennett's going to be the guy. He's not anything miraculous, but
you got that talent around you.
When you
don't have to be.
AJ was a good quarterback, but when you've got the amount of offensive talent that you've got around these guys, just get it in their hands. Do what they're paid to do. And the thing that we're forgetting, Georgia's offensive line is freaking good.
Oh yeah.
They are really good. So it will be extremely difficult. It's a tough task, but who knows? That's why they line up and play.
Well, look, Auburn's going to be carrying momentum in from that LSU win. They're going to be. Auburn couldn't have asked for a better scenario to win that game, come from behind. Everybody sort of maybe find their feet. Certainly the defense. Maybe that's what we focus on more. Is, hey, it looks like the defense played their best game outside of the first drive. A few missed assignments. They still look at times the zone. They still look like, how do we play this? A couple of the plays that LSU made were, a guy was there, Smoke Monday. Another one was Zion Puckett, where they're running a zone and they lose kind of step with their guy, and there's really no excuse other than just a slight hesitation.
Yeah.
One Zion Puckett was crossing with Nehemiah Pritchett and just for some reason just hesitated for a minute crossing over. Well, then you gave the guy the. So outside of a few of those things, the defense, I think, found a rhythm. They need Owen Papo back desperately. So I think that's why we're going to have to lean on that defense. I think the thing that about this Georgia game, when you think about offensively, I think back, first of all, Auburn hasn't done anything against Georgia since 2017. 18, 19, and 20 have been beatdowns. Now, they almost came back in 19, okay? They're down 21-0 in Jordan-Hare entering the fourth quarter, and then all of a sudden, Georgia gets a little soft, and they go hurry up, and Bo starts hitting some, and Auburn goes touchdown. And then you remember they're 21-14. They run the fourth down play to Harold Joyner and drops the ball. But before that, completely dominated. I was shocked. Auburn had a great chance, I thought, in that year to pull off something against Georgia, and Georgia's defense dominated for 3 quarters. And they did the same in 18, and they did the same last year. And so, that obviously concerns you if you're an Auburn fan and you're saying, look, our offense hasn't really done much against them in like 4 years. And so I'm curious what the game plan is going to be, because you need to get it to the fourth quarter. But what you saw from Bo against LSU, that is risky. If you go out there and
Yeah.
you tell Bo to hey, be you, just be. If Bo is he made some plays, but those could have easily gone the other way. And
Well,
so Auburn,
if,
and so to your point, Auburn needs to get it to the fourth quarter, because then I'm okay if it's the fourth quarter and let's say it's 20-10 Georgia. Um, then I'm okay with Bo being Bo. At that point, you're down 10, and I feel like there's an urgency to play like that. It makes me nervous if you're playing like that late first, early second quarter.
yeah.
Because you could make a mistake and you could get blown out real quick. And so it's, how do you get the game to the fourth quarter? How do you get there? Do you continue to let Bo run, and do you do that? Do you take your shots? Like, that's the thing. How do I get to the fourth quarter so then I can go, okay, new ball game. Now
If
let's be more aggressive if we want to.
I mean, it honestly is one of those situations, man. It's that Rocky IV fight, right? It's that, it's Rocky versus the Russian. Just, heavyweight fight, round after round after round. Just take the blows, deliver a blow, take the blow, deliver a blow. And then at some point, you make your way into the fourth quarter and you're within reach. You hit them one time and make them bleed. And that's it. Then you see that there's an opening, there's a chink in the armor, and that there's an opportunity. So I agree wholeheartedly with you that if there is a need, if Auburn has to rely on just the miraculous types of Johnny Manziel, Bo Nix plays in the first and second quarters to keep the game within reach, it's not good.
Yeah.
It is not good. I think in that situation, and I say this, I don't say this trying to be funny. If Bo's running around that way in the first and second quarter, he's not going to get benched. He's going to get hurt. These Georgia defenders are different. They're a different breed of cat. And if you're running around freelancing, trying to make plays, and you are trying to do it for your team, they're doing the same for their defense as well. And they come at you with violent intentions. And I think it's a situation where they're going to have, Bo's going to have to stay within the system, stay within his reach. And he is going to have to rely tremendously on his receivers to make plays for him. Catch the freaking ball. If the ball is thrown to you, catch it. Make a play. Don't worry about getting 5 or 10 more yards. Catch first, then run. Everything is going to matter. Every single step, every single route, every single yard, everything. And if you don't believe that, drop a few balls, give Georgia the momentum, and it'll be a boat race really quick. And just ask Arkansas. And that's not something that Auburn wants to get into.
Yeah, no, there's no question. That's why that Bo Nix performance, great win. And but I don't want to. I feel like it's the 24-hour rule. I feel like we're past that now. Not to rain on the parade, but I hope that what I saw against LSU was Bo understanding that in the moment I needed to make some plays, and that doesn't become his. He didn't revert back to that being his style. He stood there and
Right.
made some throws, and there's a difference, because he needs to say, yeah, I made some plays, but I'm standing in the pocket, and if I have to, okay, I made a few, and maybe because it was fourth down. It's fourth down, and in his head, I have no choice.
Right.
And he stood in there pretty good the other times. And so but that's why the defense for Auburn's gonna have to play so well, because like what you're talking about, it takes me back to I obviously I've grown up watching Auburn games, but my heyday was watching games was 2000 to that. I think back to those Auburn LSU games in 2004, 2006, and some of those games where you're playing a defense that every completion is an achievement. And those, especially that '04 LSU game, that 10-9 game, um, and even the '06 game, it was a 7-3. Those defenses are so good that you're just like, man. I mean, just every drive, you're like, boy, how did they even go 60 yards? But the defense was there, and so Auburn's defense is going to have that kind of effort. They're going to have to hold Georgia in check and allow Auburn to stay in that game and be aggressive and or stick with the run and try to find some things out and hold LSU to 10, 13 points, something like that. Late in the third, going into the fourth quarter, if they somehow can, and
Yeah.
just allow Auburn's offense to hang in there, because if that game gets out of hand earlier, if it gets up to 10 or 14 points, look, Georgia's a 16-point favorite in Auburn. I don't know. I mean, maybe one of the Iron Bowls, in maybe 2012. Certainly, probably Auburn was probably a 3-touchdown underdog in that game, but I don't know when the last time Auburn was 4-1, and a 2+ touchdown underdog in their own stadium. It shows you how good they think Georgia is, and so I think that's just curious. What do you take from LSU, and and uh, and bring over? And I don't know. Bobo and them are going to have some stuff for them. They are. They're going to have some stuff to be ready for. And look, maybe Georgia spends some time sitting there trying to figure out, okay, when he starts scrambling, what do we do? But my guess, Georgia is confident enough in their defense. I don't think they're going, hey, should we spy him, or should we?
No.
They're just going to play defense, man. And if he wants to do that, they're going to go, you're not going to make those plays again. We're going to bank on that was a good game, but we're going to bank on our defense not letting that happen. They're just going to come out and do
Well,
their thing.
they're defensively, defensively, their major philosophy is they run a traditional 4-3. They'll run man, they'll run single high safety coverage on the back end. They'll do a little bit of cover 2 in certain scenarios, but they just play your base defense and beat you athletically. I mean, they're huge up front, and they allow that to really impose, whatever it is that they want to accomplish on that particular day. And they're not the Georgia defenses of back in the day where they bend but don't break. They are dominant. They want to shut you out every single time they step on the field, and it's obvious. But I wouldn't predict that Kirby's going to dial up something and be worried about Bo's ability to run the football or make things happen. Mm-hmm. He's got enough confidence in his front four, or with relation to maybe a linebacker that would be coming on a blitz or whatnot, to be able to get to his point of attack, not to be worried about a spy or something along those lines. I just don't think that Kirby's gonna give it that much respect because of what he has at his disposal with his front seven. So it's going to be super, super important for Auburn to be able to make plays when they are at their fingertips. And you're going to have the ball's going to have to bounce in your direction every once in a while. You're going to have to make a big miraculous catch here or there, or there's going to have to be just an unbelievable run for a first down to sustain a touchdown drive or something along those lines. Where I get really worried when I start watching any level of football, especially Auburn, is on a multitude of drives or consistently you've got Anders Carlson, or back in the day, even when it was Daniel Carlson, even as strong as their legs are, if you consistently have them trying to kick 50-yard field goals, you're not going to win games.
Yeah.
You're not going to do it.
Auburn overcame that. 1 for 3, I guess, missed a block.
Yeah,
he was 1 for 3 on the night.
He missed from 51, blocked on a 52-yarder,
Yeah.
and then obviously made the 44-yarder, 46-yarder. So, and because of the difficulty that it puts you in, right? As a kicker, number one, it's always a toss up. You just never know what's going to happen. So let's say they make it. You're giving the ball. You're putting the ball in an offense's hand on the 35 or 40-yard line. I mean, that's a turnover. I mean, that's not good. I've always been of the opinion that, hey, run the risk and make them go 90. Put pressure on an offense and make them drive the ball 90 or 85 or 95 yards rather than 50. They're one big play away from, putting you down 7 or 14 or whatnot. So I guess it's just the, kind of me being old school and traditional, but those are going to be pivotal decisions. Those are going to be pivotal situations that, if Harsin makes them and they work, he's a genius. If he makes them and they come back to bite him in the rear end, then you question what, why, and what, and how, and when. But again, we can talk about it till we're blue in the face, man. They still got to line up and play. And the one thing that I will not question about these kids is their guts. I mean, their guts, their heart, their want to, their desire. There may be some deficiencies when it comes to execution. There may be some deficiencies in certain positions on certain things, but man, if I'm walking in an alley somewhere, if I'm doing something late night, I wouldn't be one bit worried to have any of those kids in my back.
Yeah, it was a gutsy effort. Auburn beats LSU for the second time in a row. That hasn't happened since 99, 2000. Bo all of a sudden is a dangerous player to LSU. His last two games, he's 2-0 against LSU the last 2 years. He's got 710 total yards, 6 touchdowns in the last 2 games against LSU. Last year, he had a monster game against LSU. And then even go back to 2019. Auburn didn't do a lot offensively, but they played with him there as well. So, man, Auburn could have had a better record against LSU over the years. But either way, Auburn beats LSU twice in a row. That's huge. All right, let's end on this. What's it going to take points wise? What does Auburn need to hold Georgia to? Let's say entering the fourth quarter to have a chance, because I really do think this is a game that's 2 games. It's get to the fourth quarter and then it's be more aggressive, because you got to know when to gamble against Georgia's defense. You're going to have to, but it could burn you. I think it's get to the fourth quarter and then it's okay. Now there's an extra momentum. There's a little bit more that you can have a chance. So what does Georgia need to be no more than this point total going into the fourth quarter, do you think, to be in the game? What do you think?
I would say in however you want to break it down, Georgia cannot be up by any more than 13 points entering the fourth quarter for Auburn to have a shot. If it's 33-20 entering the fourth quarter, I still think it's potentially in arm's reach. Your big plays. I just don't. While Georgia has scored a significant number of points, they've been successful off of turnovers. They've had Saturday against Arkansas, they're up 14-0. They block a punt, take it up 21-0. And there you put Arkansas in a stressful situation and they have to start forcing, and then it's just Katie bar the door, right?
Yeah.
If Auburn can keep Georgia within arm's reach, and I think within arm's reach is that 13-point margin, then you can still, up until the fourth quarter, you can still stay within your game plan. You don't have to press and ultimately gamble. Once you get into the fourth quarter, you get into that, down by 3 strokes on the 18th tee box situation where you might have to gamble a little bit here and there. But
yeah,
you're at least within arm's reach. And I think that's about the break even point. That's about the break point is don't let it get outside of that 2-score mentality. And if they can do that, I think it does a few things. One, it gives them an extra boost of confidence. It keeps the crowd in the game.
Yeah.
And man, I'm telling you, there are not many places in the country that is as electric as Jordan-Hare Stadium, especially in a big game in the fourth quarter when it's close.
Especially in this scenario. Yeah, I think for me, just kind of my early thoughts is I probably no more than 10 for me. The thought of if Auburn is let's say it's 20-10 um, going into the fourth quarter, like even that, which I would probably take right now. Uh, Even that, I think Auburn probably has a le, less than 10% chance of winning that game at that point. I mean, so like I think that's what it would be. If you looked at win probability, if it was 20-10 going into the fourth quarter, I bet Georgia would be sitting there at like 90% chance to win that
Yeah,
football game.
yeah, no
So
more probably.
uh, so I just I think it can't be more than because at least gives you a chance to okay, can we somehow score a touchdown and then can we get Carlson in range for a 45-yarder? Like that's that's possible. Um, I don't know. It's going to be an awfully tough task. We'll see how it goes. We'll see if Auburn's healthy. They should be. Nothing crazy from that game. I haven't heard. They've been pretty healthy so far, and so we'll see what they can do. The big thing, man, is look, Brian Harson's 1-0 in conference, and he did something that Gus Malzahn never did at Auburn, which is beat one of his rivals on the road. And Brian Harson's 1-0. That was the big thing for Gus. He never beat Georgia, he never beat Alabama, and he never beat LSU on the road. It was one of the big things that, regardless of some of the success he had, his record against his rivals, especially on the road, was abysmal. And say what you want, but Brian Harsin and that staff and that team got it done first try. Got it done against
Well,
a decent LSU team.
they and beating LSU, like you said, decent, great, good, average, whatever you want to say, that win was pivotal for this football team and for notably for Brian Harsin and his staff. And I think one of the favorite takeaways or favorite things he said after that ball game is he told the guys to get addicted to this feeling.
Yeah,
that's awesome, and it is. It is. Oh man, it is such a good feeling to win a game on the road in the SEC because it's so rare. It's so not likely that to be able to go into someone else's house and beat them in any way, shape, form, or fashion is huge. It's a giant momentum boost. Just look at Mississippi State going to State College, and doing their thing. Or College Station. Excuse me, I'm still thinking about Penn State. But to do that, and then obviously Georgia's looking at doing that to Auburn this coming weekend. So winning on the road in the SEC is tough. For Brian Harsin to do it against LSU at night in Death Valley, I think it's a huge feather in his cap. But the most important takeaway, man, when he told the guys, get addicted to this feeling, enjoy it today, but then we start back to work tomorrow. Let's roll. I'm on board, man. I'm on board with what he's doing. I'm on board with how he's doing it. I just hope they can continue to stack the blocks, continue to build. They want to get to.
Yeah, that was a good moment. It said get addicted to it, and he said then we're going to go back out and work and figure out how to do it again, which I think is pretty much tells you everything you need to know about Brian Harsin as a head coach. So we'll see how it goes, man. Well, if I don't talk to you again before Auburn, Georgia, I know you'll be there. It's a big one for you as always, and so it ought to be a fun atmosphere. I mean, look. Auburn spent time in Happy Valley, which wasn't so happy, and they go to Death Valley. That was more happy than Happy Valley. But they've had these environments where they've had big crowds. Well, this is Auburn's chance for the first time in 2 years to have I mean, really since the first time, I guess it'd be Iron Bowl, the Alabama, I guess in November, the first time to have a big game,
Yeah.
hyped up crowd, and so now it's Auburn's turn,
Well,
and
I mean,
to be there and be loud and see what they can do.
well, hope you. I mean, dude, this is, and they talked about it last night. The players, think about it like this: the players that signed in the 2020 signing class. So those kids that signed to play at Auburn in February of 2020, this is the first big home game of their career.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, even for Tank, this is the first big home game of his entire career at Auburn in 2 years. It's going to be an experience above all that two classes of young men that are wearing this uniform on Saturday. It is the first experience they've had. And listen, and I mean it. I know I said it jokingly. If you're an Auburn fan, if you got Auburn tickets, don't sell them to a Georgia fan. Don't give them to a Georgia fan. I don't care if it's your uncle. Don't do it. You want as little red and black in that stadium as can absolutely be fathomed. Don't do it. Give them away to an Auburn fan. Come stand on campus and give them to somebody wearing orange and blue. Do not, above all, sell them to a visiting fan. Please, I'm begging you, don't do it.
I hear you. I don't know, man. They're going to find their way in, but yeah, any little bit would can uh, can help for that. I mean, look, if you're an Auburn fan, like you just said, man, it's been a while. It's just going to be a fun day. Hopefully, it's a fun day and good weather, and it'll be cool to be back in a hyped up big SEC game experience atmosphere. Um, it'll be a lot of fun. I know you'll be there, man. Much appreciation for joining us. Again, thanks, Ben Leard, auburnlive.com. Make sure to remember. Um, and we'll be having podcasts all week talking about Auburn, Georgia, reliving Auburn LSU as we talk to Brian Harsin and players, and we'll see what they have to say as Auburn gets ready for a massive, massive game. And we'll see what they got. Look, Georgia's the big favorite. Auburn's got nothing to lose. Let's see what Auburn's made of and what improvements they've made halfway through the season. Appreciate everybody for joining us. Go subscribe to auburnlive.com. For Ben, I'm Justin. We'll see you next time. Bye.